this city cannot continue to have a group of the haves and the have-mores and eliminate the have-nots.
Right. And I want you to see where the city keeps their wants. Yes. We're all concentrated. All of our infirmities and our illness are concentrated, and they're building that. We're not getting any help. They're not moving us out of DC General.
We all have a $417 million surplus. There are countries in this world whose gross national product is not $417 million.
In contrast to Washington, D.C. Mayor Vincent Gray's State of the District address, and to coincide with the onset of budget season, the D.C. Fair Budget Coalition held a public forum on March 5, 2013, inside the John Wilson Building, D.C. City Hall, which they called State of the District's Poverty. What's the story behind the 600 kids at D.C. General? Panel moderator Patricia Mulehi-Fugere, executive director of the Washington Legal Clinic for the Homeless, lays out the choices in front of the City Council as a result of an unexpected $417 million surplus in the city's budget.
It's a time really of unprecedented opportunity for the District of Columbia. It's a time when our elected officials are going to be making important decisions about spending money that just several months ago was not something that we could have anticipated.
Advocates for D.C.'s low-income and working-class residents believe that district government should use surplus funds to reinvest in social services, which have seen many cuts in recent years due to the recession. But legislation adopted in 2010 by Mayor Vincent Gray requires that any unexpected revenue be put into the city's savings account. The Fair Budget Coalition's Janelle Tribitz explains why.
Now they're being extremely fiscally conservative, and they're trying to build up the savings account to be able to, in some sort of crazy emergency, pay for all of the budget's expenses for 2 months, and that it is fiscally responsible to put that money in savings. We're saying, is it fiscally responsible to let another 300 families slide into homelessness, where it's actually more expensive to take care of their needs once they're in the shelter than it is to just give them the programs that they need before they get there and do preventative measures. And so we don't think that sounds very fiscally responsible to us, when actually it's costing us more money in the long term.
In 2001, D.C. General, the city's only public hospital, was closed in a controversial effort to cut costs. Since then, it has become a shelter for families, the only one operated by the District of Columbia, and currently housing nearly 300 families. One of the forum's panelists, Nukichi Feaster, a former resident of D.C. General, talks about her struggle to find work that would sustain her family despite her obvious qualifications.
I am the best example I can use, so I'm just going to tell you my story. I became pregnant with my child after my first year of college, which means I couldn't continue to go get my degree to get my dream job of being a lawyer. But since I only wanted to work in the legal field, I knew I could start at the bottom, work my way up. I could go to the mailroom, whatever it took. My first corporate job was in a law firm in Georgetown. Loved the job, excellent job. Started at $28 a year, and by the time I was laid off 3 years later, I was at $38. I know I'm a good employee. Without a degree, without training, I know what I'm lacking, but I knew I could get a job. Within the next 4 years, I was laid off 2 other times. 3 layoffs in 4 years. Who else can keep up with that?
Another panelist, Mamawi Woods, speaks about her experience with Virginia Williams Family Resource Center, the central intake office for all families requesting emergency housing and assistance in the District of Columbia.
But I want to talk to you about what happens, what you may go through if you ever become homeless. The first thing you would have to do is go to the Virginia Williams Family Resource City Center, and it is the only place in the city that you can go to. There is nowhere you can go to. When you get to Virginia Williams, there's a room about this size filled with sometimes more people than this. Sometimes the people have been, the smell in the room is overwhelming because people have been sleeping outside in abandoned buildings. You're given a stack of paperwork. The red tape is ridiculous. How do you decide who you're going to help?
According to the Fair Budget Coalition's budget recommendations for fiscal year 2014, a report they call Put People First, Budgeting for a Human Rights City, many more people could be housed if only the City Council would dip into the surplus. For example, An additional $4.5 million investment would ensure that there is enough space in the district's shelter system year-round for the 300 families currently living in D.C. General. Again, Janelle Tribetz.
One thing in the report is that we can end homelessness for the elderly and homelessness for people living with HIV and AIDS for about $9 million. That's all it would cost to end homelessness for those folks. And so that's something that we're beginning to push. We're trying to get 300 families out of DC General and into affordable housing. And so we have a very strong savings account now because they have been saving, but they've been saving in the middle of recession. So they're saving on the backs of people who are losing their homes. Like, that is the result of their savings right now. This is not the time to save. When you have kids who are starving, do you buy them food or do you put away for their college fund?
Now, one good thing coming from DC General, my son graduated high school salutatorian with a 4-year scholarship to Michigan State. Being in the situation that I'm in, that was a huge relief. It was one thing. I did not have to worry about my child. He's fine. But now I have to worry about me.
I'm so glad that you all here today. Is it okay if we just ask you all for help? Is it okay if we actually tell the city, look, we need some of that surplus. If we need you all to get behind us and get us out of that place. We want home. We're not we really need you all to get behind us.
5 of D.C.'s city council members co-sponsored this event and are presumably taking seriously the advice of low-income advocates like the Fair Budget Coalition. To reverse the Sustainable Capital Investment and Fund Balance Restoration Act, the law requiring that the District of Columbia's entire $417 million surplus must go into the city's savings account, 2 more council members and the city's mayor, Vincent Gray, must also agree. The fate of the 600 children at D.C. General, as well as thousands of low-income D.C. residents, remains in their hands. In Washington, D.C., I'm Leanne Scott.